the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Alt. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear selections from the exploits of the incomparable Mullah Nasruddin by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Fear. Nasruddin was walking along a lonely road one moonlit night when he heard a snore, somewhere, it seemed, underfoot. Suddenly he was afraid, and was about to run when he tripped over a dervish lying in a cell which he had dug for himself, partly underground.
Who are you?
Stammered the mullah. I am a dervish, and this is my contemplation place.
Oh, you will have to let me share it. Your snore frightened me out of my wits, and I cannot go any further tonight.
Take the other end of this blanket, then, said the dervish without enthusiasm, and lie down here. Please be quiet, because I am keeping a vigil. It is a part of a complicated series of exercises. Tomorrow I must change the pattern, and I cannot stand interruption. Nasruddin fell asleep for a time. Then he woke up very thirsty.
I am thirsty,
he told the dervish. Then go back down the road where there is a stream.
No, I am still afraid.
I shall go for you then, said the dervish. After all, to provide water is a sacred obligation in the East.
No, don't go. I shall be afraid all by myself.
Take this knife to defend yourself with, said the dervish. While he was away, Nasruddin frightened himself still more, working himself up into a lather of anxiety, which he tried to counter by imagining how he would attack any fiend who threatened him. Presently the dervish returned.
Keep your distance, or I'll kill you,
said Nasruddin. But I am the dervish, said the dervish.
I don't care who you are. You may be a fiend in disguise. Besides, you have your head and eyebrows shaved.
The dervishes of that order shave the head and eyebrows. But I have come to bring you water. Don't you remember you are thirsty?
Don't try to ingratiate yourself with me, fiend.
But that is my cell you are occupying.
That's hard luck for you, isn't it? You'll just have to find another one.
I suppose so, said the dervish. But I am sure I don't know what to make of all this.
I can tell you one thing,
said Nasruddin,
and that is that fear is multidirectional.
It certainly seems to be stronger than thirst, or sanity, or other people's property, said the dervish.
And you don't have to have it yourself in order to suffer from it,
said Nasruddin. The robe. Jalal, an old friend of Nasruddin's, called one day. The mullah said,
I am delighted to see you after such a long time. I am just about to start on a round of visits, however. Come, walk with me and we can talk.
Lend me a decent robe, said Jalal, because, as you see, I am not dressed for visiting.
Nasruddin lent him a very fine robe. At the first house, Nasruddin presented his friend.
This is my old companion Jalal, but the robe he is wearing, that is mine.
On their way to the next village, Jalal said,
What a stupid thing to say. The robe is mine, indeed. Don't do it again.
Nasruddin promised. When they were comfortably seated at the next house, Nasruddin said,
This is Jalal, an old friend, come to visit me, but the robe is his.
As they left, Jalal was just as annoyed as before.
Why did you say that? Are you crazy?
I only wanted to make amends. Now we are quits.
If you do not mind, said Jalal, slowly and carefully, we shall not say any more about the robe.
Nasruddin promised. At the third and final place of call, Nasruddin said,
May I present Jalal, my friend, and the robe he is wearing, but we mustn't say anything about the robe, must we?
Saved his life. Nasruddin, when he was in India, passed near a strange-looking building, at the entrance of which a hermit was sitting. He had an air of abstraction and calm, and Nasruddin thought that he would make some sort of contact with him.
Surely,
he thought,
a devout philosopher like me must have something in common with this saintly individual.
I am a yogi, said the anchorite in answer to the mullah's question, and I am dedicated to the service of all living things, especially birds and fish.
Pray, allow me to join you,
said the mullah.
For, as I had expected, we have something in common. I am strongly attracted to your sentiments, because a fish once saved my life.
How pleasantly remarkable, said the yogi. I shall be delighted to admit you to our company. For all my years of devotion to the cause of animals, I have never yet been privileged to attain such intimate communion with them as you. Saved your life. This amply substantiates our doctrine that all the animal kingdom is interlinked. So Nasruddin sat with the yogi for some weeks, contemplating his navel and learning various curious gymnastics. At length the yogi asked him, If you feel able, now that we are better acquainted, to communicate to me your supreme experience with the life-saving fish, I would be more than honoured.
I am not sure about that, said the mullah, now that I have heard more of your ideas.
But the yogi pressed him, with tears in his eyes, calling him master, and rubbing his forehead in the dust before him.
Very well, if you insist,
said Nasruddin.
Though I am not quite sure whether you are ready, to use your parlance, for the revelation I have to make. The fish certainly saved my life. I was on the verge of starvation when I caught it. It provided me with food for 3 days.
Four-legged. Cause sustenance to be produced for the quadrupeds, called an affected and imperious nobleman, dismounting in Nasruddin's courtyard, and conduct me to the tranquillity-inducing chambers where I may be regaled with appropriate nutriment. Such members of the Sultan's court were difficult to deny, and Nasruddin ran to do his bidding. When the interloper was settled on the best couch, sipping Nasruddin's coffee, the mullah brought the qazi, or magistrate, to meet him.
"O great noble," said Nasruddin, "have you land?"
1,000,000 jaribs.
"And do you use quadrupeds for ploughing?"
"Yes, indeed."
"Would you buy from me 2 dozen quadrupeds at a price of 5 silver pieces each?"
The patrician knew plough animals were worth 100 pieces of silver. He eagerly assented. Nasruddin went out and bought 24 rabbits for a silver piece each. He then presented these quadrupeds to the noble. He appealed to the qazi. "We must stick to the letter of the law," said the pedant, "and I uphold the contention that rabbits are 4-footed. Quiz. There was a great deal of restlessness in the country, and the king had sent a cultural delegation through the villages to reassure people. Everywhere they went, the people were most impressed, because between them they marshalled an immense collection of knowledge and expertise. One was an author, another was a priest, a third was a member of the royal household. There was a lawyer, a soldier and a merchant, and many others. At each place at which they stopped, they called a meeting in the nearest open space, and people assembled and asked them questions. When they arrived at Nasruddin's village, a large gathering headed by the mayor welcomed them. Questions were asked and answered, and everyone was to some degree influenced by the array and importance of the delegation. Nasruddin arrived late, but as a local celebrity he was pushed forward.
"What are you doing here?"
he asked. The chairman smiled compassionately. "We are a team of experts, here to answer all the questions that the people cannot answer for themselves. And who, pray, are you?"
"Oh, me,"
said Nasruddin offhandedly.
"You'd better have me here on the platform."
He climbed up beside the dignitaries.
"I am here, you see, to answer the questions which you don't know the answers to. Shall we start with some of the things which baffle you, learned gentlemen?"
The sign. Nasruddin claimed a knowledge of the stars. "What sign were you born under, Mullah?"
"Private property, keep out."
No, the sign of the zodiac."
"Oh, I see. Well, the sign of the donkey."
"The sign of the donkey? I don't remember that one."
Well, you are older than me. They've had some new ones since your time, you know."
All her fault. Nasruddin tried to get a calf into a pen, but it would not go. So he went to its mother and began to reproach her. "Why are you shouting at that cow?" someone asked.
"It is all her fault," said Nasruddin, "for she should have taught him better."
The ways of foreigners. Nasruddin climbed into an orchard and started to pick apricots. Suddenly the gardener saw him. The mullah instantly climbed a tree. "What are you doing here?" the gardener asked.
"Singing. I am a nightingale."
"All right, nightingale. Let me hear you sing." Nasruddin warbled a few inharmonious notes, so unlike a bird that the gardener laughed. "I have never heard that kind of nightingale before," he said.
"You evidently have not travelled," said the mullah. "I chose the song of a rare, exotic nightingale."
Burnt foot. An illiterate came to Nasruddin and asked him to write a letter for him.
"I can't," said the mullah, "because I have burned my foot."
"What has that got to do with writing a letter?"
"Since nobody can read my handwriting, I am bound to have to travel somewhere to interpret the letter, and my foot is sore, so there is no point in writing the letter, is there?"
Old moons. "What do they do with the old moon when there is a new one?" a wag asked Nasruddin.
They cut them up. Each old moon provides 40 stars.
Letter of the Law. Nasruddin found a valuable ring in the street. He wanted to keep it. But according to law, the finder of an object had to go to the marketplace and shout the fact 3 times in a loud voice. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the mullah went to the square and shouted thrice,
"I have found such and such a ring."
By the third shout, people were pouring into the streets. "What is it all about, Mullah?" they asked.
"The law lays down a threefold repetition," said Nasruddin, "and for all I know I may be breaking it if I say the same thing a fourth time. But I'll tell you something else. I am the owner of a diamond ring, all right."
The cat is wet. Nasruddin took a job as a watchman. His master called him and asked whether it was raining. "I have to go and see the Sultan, and the dye on my favourite cloak is not fast. If it is raining, it will be ruined." Now, Nasruddin was very lazy, and besides, he prided himself on being a master of deduction. The cat had just streaked in, soaked through.
"Master," he said, "it is raining heavily."
The master spent some time getting himself arrayed in other finery, went out, and found that there was no rain. The cat had been soaked by someone throwing water at it to scare it away. Nasruddin got the sack. Sleep is an activity. Nasruddin wanted to steal some fruit from a stall, but the stall-holder had a fox which kept watch. He overheard the man say to his fox, "Foxes are craftier than dogs, and I want you to guard the stall with cunning. There are always thieves about. When you see anyone doing anything, ask yourself why he's doing it, and whether it can be related to the security of the stall." When the man had gone away, the fox came to the front of the stall and looked at Nasruddin lurking on a lawn opposite. Nasruddin at once lay down and closed his eyes. The fox thought, "Sleeping is not doing anything." As he watched Nasruddin, he too began to feel tired. He lay down and went to sleep. Then Nasruddin crept past him and stole some fruit. The child is father to the man. Nasruddin arrived at an all-comers horse race mounted on the slowest of oxen. Everyone laughed. An ox cannot run.
"But I have seen it, when it was only a calf running faster than a horse," said Nasruddin. "So why should it not run faster, now that it is larger?"
Every little helps. Nasruddin loaded his ass with wood for the fire, and instead of sitting in its saddle, sat astride one of the logs. "Why don't you sit in the saddle?" someone asked.
"What? And add my weight to what the poor animal has to carry? My weight is on the wood, and it is going to stay there."
This podcast is copyright 2016, the Idris Shah Foundation.